Now.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Well, the 2007 Left Forum came to a close Sunday in New York City. Each spring, the forum convenes the largest gathering here in the country of the international left. With close to 100 panels, 3 major cultural events, the Left Forum brings together organizers and intellectuals from across the globe. One of those who spoke was professor, culture critic, social justice advocate Cornel West. He's been described as one of America's most vital and eloquent public intellectuals, a professor of religion and African American studies at Princeton University. Professor West is a critic of culture, now analyst of postmodern art and philosophy, has written and co-authored many books on philosophy, race, and sociology. His most recent book is Democracy Matters, Winning the Fight Against Imperialism. He addressed a panel at the Left Forum. Cornel West began by talking about the status of the political left in 2007.
What does it really mean to be a leftist in the early part of the 21st century? What are we really talking about? And I can just be very candid with you. It means to have a certain kind of temperament, to make certain kinds of political and ethical choices, and to exercise certain analytical focuses and targeting on the catastrophic and the monstrous, the scandalous, the traumatic, that are often hidden and concealed in the deodorized and manicured discourses of the mainstream. That's what it means to be a leftist. So let's just be clear about it. So that if you were concerned about structural violence, if you're concerned about exploitation at the workplace, if you're concerned about institutionalized contempt against gay brothers and lesbian sisters, if you're concerned about organized hatred against peoples of color, if you're concerned about the subordination of women, that's not cheap PC chit-chat. That is a calling that you're willing to fight against and try to understand the sources of that social misery at the structural and institutional level and at the existential and the personal level. That's what it means in part to be a leftist. That's why we choose to be certain kinds of human beings. That's why it's a calling, not a career. It's a vocation, not a profession. That's why you see these veterans still here year after year after year, because they are convinced they don't want to live in a world and they don't want to be human in such a way that they don't exercise their intellectual and political and social and cultural resources in some way to leave the world just a little better than it was when they entered. That's in part what it means to be a leftist. Now, what does that mean for me? It means for me in the United States, and I go back now the 400 years of Jamestown. You all know this is the 400th anniversary of the first enduring English settlement in the New World. There was Roanoke before, but it didn't last. Jamestown lasts. And what do you have at Jamestown? The Virginia Club of London, an extension of the British Empire, makes its way over the 3 boats whose names we need not go into at the moment. And what do? They interact with another empire, the Powhatan Empire, that's already in place, of indigenous peoples. You actually get the clash of empire. This is the age of empire. But what are they here for? Looking for gold and silver, and secondarily to civilize the natives. So already you get America as a corporation before it's a country. Corporate greed is already sitting at the center in terms of what is pushing it. And corporate greed, as Marx understood it, capital as a social relation, an asymmetric relation of power with bosses and workers, with those at the top who will be able to live lives of luxury, and those whose labor will be both indispensable, necessary, but also exploited in order to produce that wealth. Then there's religion, to civilize the indigenous peoples. Now, you can't talk about the U.S. experience, and I think in many ways this is true for the New World experience, without talking about the dominant role of religion as an ideology. And we also know one of the reasons why vast numbers of our fellow citizens today in the United States, one of the reasons why they're not leftists is precisely because they have not been awakened from their sleepwalking. They have not been convinced that they ought to choose to live a life the way we have chosen, in part because we've been cast with the mark of the anti-religious or the naively secular or what have you. And that's 98% of fellow citizens. So no matter what kind of political organization Brother Stanley's talking about, he's going to get grumption about it. He's got to dip into the popular culture of the everyday people. And 98% of them talking about God. That's 97.5 fellow Americans believe in God. 75% believe Jesus Christ is the Son of God. 62% believe they speak on intimate terms with God at least twice a day. That's who we're dealing with in terms of our fellow citizens.